Welcome into A to Z Sports Prime Time on this Monday night. Lovely to have you guys here for another episode of the Prime Time Show. We've got official coordinator news made official earlier this afternoon by the team. The hiring of Devin Wilson to be the Tennessee Titans' next defensive coordinator, and Nick Foles, formerly the Jacksonville Jags, will just switch sides in the AFC South and become the OC under Brian Callahan as a play-calling head coach. We are going to talk about everything that you need to know about these two gentlemen and what it is that they bring to your football team. We will end the show with Bert. I don't think we've done an actual In Case You Missed It with Bert in the better part of 2 months. So we will see if he's shirtless, if he's prepared, if he has anything funny to say. I'm willing to bet that he goes over tonight, but you'll have to stick around until the end of the show to find out for yourself. We appreciate you wherever you are spending your time here with us on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and on Twitch is where you can get involved. If you're on Twitter, please retweet the show in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. If you're on Facebook Live, you can share. You can share now to public. That's in the bottom left. If you're on YouTube or Twitch like Luman or BBirds18, you can like the video. You can subscribe to the channel. Tell a friend to do the same. We are always grateful when you do. So let's talk about these two men who have been hired to help out on the offensive side of the ball in the case of Holes and to run the defensive side of the things in Wilson. We'll break these things down together. Welcome into A to Z Sports Prime Time from the Zen Sports Studios. I'm your host, Buck Rising. I'm proud, as always, to be presented to you by the great people at Zen Sports. Download the app, plug in the promo code ATOZTN, whether you're wagering on the Super Bowl, the big game rather, and college basketball, NHL, everything in between. Zen Sports has you covered with that promo code ATOZTN. The Ashton Real Estate Group of RE/MAX Advantage, GaryAshton.com is where you go to get the Intel Edge, your dream address without the stress, and TrueMath Fitness in the Gulch, the best way to work out for a best version of you in 2024. Go to TrueMathFitness.com for your first workout free. A lot of news over the course of the last, couple of days with coaching carousel stuff coming to, at least from the head coach's perspective, coming to a halt, right? All 8 jobs that turned over coaches this offseason have made a hire or promoted internally or retained their interim in the case of the Raiders. And now they have been filling out their coaching staffs under him. Brian Callahan, one of the first external hire by a team, made by any team, has had a little bit more time to get the work done that he needs to on this coaching staff to make sure it's the best version of itself as humanly possible. We've talked about him hiring his father, Bill, to come in and oversee the offensive line. We've talked about guys like Tyke Tolbert, career wide receiver coach, coming in here, having worked with the position since I think like 2003. This is there's a lot of veteran experience to support a lot of first-time opportunities here. For Callahan as a first-time head coach and play caller, for Holes as a first-time OC, and for Wilson as a first-time defensive coordinator. It's going to be fascinating, but they think that they are putting the right people in place behind them as a support system for them to work through whatever levels of adversity that a first-time head coach, OC, and DC would face all at the same time. So let's start with Nick Foles and what we need to know about this new offensive coordinator. We know the circumstance here in Tennessee is going to be different, given that Brian Callahan is going to call the plays, but I'll start with your Two Rivers Ford take on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and on Twitch is where you can interact. What is your biggest question about new Titans OC Nick Foles? We'll talk about it together right after I remind you that your Two Rivers Ford take is made possible by the wonderful people at Two Rivers Ford. Quality American-made Ford vehicles and award-winning customer service. Two Rivers Ford in Mount Juliet or online at tworiversford.com. So what is your biggest question about the new Titans offensive coordinator, Nick Foles? So here's what you need to know about this gentleman who's coming in here to work in a collaborative effort, keyword collaborative, with the new head coach. So Holes, his last stop was with the Jacksonville Jaguars. It was his first season as a passing game coordinator there. They didn't have a great year, the Jags, but they did rank 9th in the NFL in passing and 13th in points per game, 22.2. He had been in college the year previous as UNLV's offensive coordinator, so he has called plays in his past and was with the Raiders for the better part of a decade. He first got there in 2012 before going to UNLV to try his hand at running an offense. Served in a variety of different roles there. Holes and Callahan did work together with the Raiders in 2018. Callahan was the team's quarterbacks coach, and Holes was an offensive quality control coach when the two crossed over in 18. They are also high school classmates. And Nick Holes apparently spent a year with Bill Callahan, Brian's dad, the offensive line coach of the Titans and formerly the head coach of Nebraska. So those are all the career resume points of the person who will be a part of the Titans offense this year, because of course, Brian Callahan is ultimately who bears the responsibility for how this thing is going to go. So we talked about Nick Holes last week on the radio show. We vetted him as a part of this. Lucas posted the full clip of going through all the different details, all the different questions that we have. And I'm going to tell you the biggest question that I have about him here in just a second, right after we listen to this.
What makes Holes' resume more impressive? Just the fact that he survived all those coaching tenures?
That it's
with the Raiders?
Well, that he's been in the league for as long as he has, that he's got experience both in college and pro.
Yeah. He's got the relationship, obviously, with Brian Callahan.
Which matters, especially if you're going to be as closely tied as... Think about how close a relationship Zach Taylor and Brian Callahan clearly have.
Yeah.
Like, this has to be somebody that you are... This your best man, okay? This your football best man in your new football marriage.
In communication on every play.
So you gotta know that this is the person that you're gonna gut it out with. That you're gonna wake up next to them phrasing day in and day out, but you understand what I'm saying. Maybe
the guy's got to be able to finish your sentences for you.
Truly.
Which is ironic given that Lucas just finished my sentence there, but we won't tell him that we are in a collaborative effort as producer and host. But that's a clip from the radio show where we vetted Nick Holes last week. And I want to bring up this comment from Matthew Johnson because I think it's a common one or a common way of thinking. But I don't want to say it bothers me. It doesn't bother me, but I think that it's inaccurate. Callahan is calling plays, which is accurate. That's true. He is going to be the final word that goes through the headset to the quarterback's helmet. OC, not really a big deal. They will work together on calling plays. Okay, so yes, no, yes is how I would break down that statement by Matthew Johnson. Callahan is calling the plays. OC, not really a big deal. Well, of course it's a big deal. If they have somebody, so let's just take, for example, the relationship between Zach Taylor, the Bengals head coach, who called the plays in Cincinnati, as you well know, and Brian Callahan, who was a non-play calling offensive coordinator with Taylor. They together are in discussion with each other on every play up until the 15-second mark on the play clock, like in game. They're going back and forth. They're trying to provide different perspectives. They're trying to give each other helpful tips on how it is that they should approach this. They're trying to point out constructive criticisms on one thing or another. It is as much Brian Callahan's baby, the offensive system in Cincinnati, as it is Zach Taylor's. You're talking about somebody who has to be like your brain twin, right? In how you're going to go about this thing. Now, it's helpful if you can bring more perspectives on one problem to find a solution than going about it individually, right? You're not asking Brian Callahan to shoulder all of this, and he's got a lot of other responsibilities that he's got to be capable of managing beyond just calling the offensive plays. So for a play calling head coach, where game day operation, challenges, timeouts, clock management, all this other stuff, you got to juggle a million different things but beyond just getting whatever the 3rd and 5 play call is to the quarterback for them to be able to execute it. You need somebody who you really, really can trust to be your eyes where you might not be able to see everything that you need to be able to see. Holes is implementing the offense as Vernon Sanford. Well, the point is they both are, right? they both are responsible for the installation, for the calling of the play. Even if Callahan is the final voice that you hear, it's as much, at least based on the previous structure that Callahan is coming from, and he's spoken about that before, it's as much Nick Holes's offense as it is Brian Callahan's, even if it's Brian Callahan's system first and foremost. I think that to devalue the offensive coordinator spot doesn't give the necessary importance that your head coach places on the offensive coordinator spot based on his needs or what he expects to need as somebody who's going to have to manage this thing in game. At least Callahan had an offensive coordinator. Remember when Vrabel went solo? I mean, that only happened twice. One out of necessity because Dean Pease had a medical incident in the middle of a game, in the middle of a first quarter in Indianapolis. Dean Pease had to go to the hospital. So in real time, Mike Vrabel had to take over defensive play calling against the Colts. In the same game, I think Marcus Mariota got knocked out. I'm pretty sure Blaine Gabbert had to finish that game, if my memory serves correctly. And then the other one was the one that Wesley Woodyard has talked about, where Vrabel made the decision that he was going to call the defensive plays against the Kansas City Chiefs in the AFC Championship game. They gave up less total yards to Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs than they did the week previous to Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens, where Lamar almost had 500 yards of total offense himself. They lost the game to the Chiefs after beating the Ravens. But, I don't think the Dean Pease medical incident, it was bad, right? They were all over the place. And, you could tell that it wasn't something that they were going to be able to stop the bleeding on in real time. The defense played poorly that day. And you understand that there's mitigating circumstances, but ultimately Mike Vrabel bears the responsibility for the way that the defense performed. Defense actually played pretty well in Kansas City beyond Rashaan Evans missing that tackle and them just not being able to keep pace with the Chiefs in the second half as an offense. So I don't think the two sample size in 6 years that we have of Mike Vrabel calling defensive plays was like outright bad. One was a horrible situation that, thank God for Dean Pease, worked out okay. And the other one was the head coach making a decision that a lot of people disagreed with. And, right, wrong, or indifferent, they did have a pretty good game plan for the Chiefs that day. So that's what it is. I think that there is a lot of this stuff that, you don't see. I don't see it, right? I'm not in their meetings every day. I don't get to be a part of their game planning sessions or their installation process or all this different stuff. So I do think that to an extent it's easy to kind of shrug and say, yeah, but does the offensive coordinator really matter here if the head coach is calling plays? The answer is yes. The answer is 100% yes. Because if this mold or this model that Callahan comes from in Cincinnati is going to be what we see here in Tennessee, or a version of it, then this is about to be as much Nick Holes's baby as it is Brian Callahan's. And you can't devalue that. Certainly the head coach will not. All right, we'll talk about Denard Wilson here in just a second. What's the biggest question that you have for about Denard Wilson as the new defensive coordinator of the Titans? We'll get into it together right after I remind you that the Primetime Show is presented by TrueMath Fitness in the Gulch. Go to TrueMathFitness.com for your first workout free. No workout ever recycled or repeated. I love the personal training sessions. Worth Campbell, who owns it, diehard Titans fan. Worth was texting me all weekend long about the Callahan hires and how excited he is about it. So you can talk Titans. You can get the best workout in Middle Tennessee at TrueMath Fitness, where your first workout is free at TrueMathFitness.com. Okay, Denard Wilson. What's the biggest question that you have for Denard Wilson? Caleb Meadows says 3-4 or 4-3 base defense. Stephen King says the same, but adds hybrid. All right, so they don't call them 3-4 or 4-3 anymore. That's kind of a dated term. You hear coaches talk a lot about 5-man fronts. You hear coaches talk a lot about under and over, unders, not unders and overs in the betting sense, but like an under front or an over front, depending on how they align themselves, how they're getting ready to bring pressure from different sides of the defense. You hear people talk about multiplicity more than you hear coaches kind of boxing themselves in with the term 3-4 or 4-3. Basically, what he said is that they're going to deploy 5-man fronts in a lot of this situation, whether that's, 3 down defensive linemen and 2 outside linebackers, whether that's a variety of different guys, whether that's double A gap looks and stuff like that. At least to hear him answer that question at the press conference. And I've heard coaches use those kind of terms before where, media has to retrain themselves in the way that they talk about 3-4 or 4-3 versus how coaches talk about this stuff actually. Kenneth Davidson says, are there any players that he can bring with him from the Ravens? Well, Patrick Queen is an inside linebacker that is a free agent. I would love to see Patrick Queen in a Titans uniform if I was a Titans fan. The inside linebacker play is average to below. Azeez Al-Shaair had a solid year. He broke Stephen Tulloch's regular season record for the most tackles in a regular season for this franchise, which is a huge accomplishment to his credit. He was largely available, Azeez, throughout the course of the year, and he's good enough in coverage, good enough that they need somebody to pair with him. He's not David Long. He doesn't have the athletic gifts that David Long does, where David Long was a more versatile player than Al-Shaair was. I think you need to find a complementary piece, and I think Queen would fit that mold. That would be a lot of money, says Kenneth Davidson. Any cheaper options? Sure, but you've got a ton of money to spend this year, so I don't think that you have to get super cheap about it. PBK says, Buck, are the new coordinators going to be made available to the media? Probably not. I mean, shit, I wouldn't expect us to talk to them. Well, let me say this. I don't know for sure if we're going to talk to them before like training camp or anything like that starts, rookie minicamp, things like that. When Vrabel was hired, I'm trying to think of the last time we did this. I don't think we had separate like media availabilities prior to the season starting or prior to like, rookie minicamp and UDFA tryouts and stuff like that starting with the coordinators until like May. Now, maybe they do things differently here. But right now we don't have anything scheduled. I'm looking at my email just to make sure that I didn't miss anything from the team, but we don't have anything scheduled to meet with the offensive coordinator and the defensive coordinator right now. If that happens, obviously we'll keep you guys updated and we'll have coverage from there. But yes, I would not expect to talk to the coordinators and the rest of the coaching staff until there are draft picks made and stuff like that. Now, the thing that I will say that I was thinking about this the other day, because we're putting together something really cool. Well, we've already done it once. It's the live show, the install, the podcast that Greg Cosell and myself do every Wednesday for the Zone. We're doing another live show. It's going to be right after the draft this year. We'll get you more details as they become available and tell you guys how you can buy tickets to this, because we had a sellout crowd last year at the Analog. It was awesome to break down the tape with Greg. And this year we're going to do it much sooner or much closer to the draft. Last year, I think about a month passed before Greg and I actually got to do that. And we're long story short, Greg and I are planning this, and we're anticipating having some participation from the Titans on a level. What that looks like exactly, we'll have to give you more information as dates become concrete and schedules become more concrete and things like that. But I say all that to say that in asking for, say Brian Callahan to do a segment with Greg and I on breaking down tape and talking about philosophical approaches and his thoughts on certain styles of play and the current state of the game, I'd also like to request the coordinators and the position coaches to talk with Greg and I on the podcast. And I don't know how receptive they're going to be to that. I haven't asked them yet. It's just something, honestly, that I was thinking about today, to have like Bill Callahan break down offensive line with Greg. Maybe I don't even have to be there for it. Maybe we just set those things up for Greg. I think I would be an unnecessary presence in the middle of that podcast. But I would very much like to do that. We'll see if they're open to that. That was not something that was going to happen under Mike Vrabel, but I'm going to start talking to the team about that more this week. We've already had initial discussions about Callahan and Rand's availability to join us for the Install Live show. So we'll keep you updated with that as we get closer to that date in a couple months from now. Nick Davis says T-Rack will be there? ? T-Rack was not there last year, but we'll dress Bert up like T-Rack, let him run around. God knows what he'll be doing on the inside of that uniform or mascot outfit, but perhaps we will bleep around and find out. William Jones says, will the coordinators be on the field or up in the booth? We have no idea because Callahan hasn't talked since hiring them. Their hire was only made official this afternoon. We have not spoken to either of those two gentlemen ourselves just yet, so no clue at all. All right, so let's talk about Wilson. What's the biggest question that you have about Wilson, the new defensive coordinator of the Titans? We'll talk about that right after I remind you that Zen Sports is your place to wager this season. The big game is on Sunday between the Chiefs and the Niners. You can get up to $1,000 on your no danger first wager betting the big game in the Zen Sports app when you plug in the promo code ATOZTN. Terms and conditions do apply. Gambling problem? Call the Tennessee Red Line, 1-800-889-9789. So Denard Wilson, what do you need to know about the new Titans defensive coordinator? He's 41 years old. He interviewed with the Packers, the Rams, and the Giants this offseason and just finished his first year in Baltimore as their secondary coach. He was previously in Philly, where he was the defensive backs coach there. He had passing game coordinator duties in 2022 when the Eagles went to the Super Bowl, and they were the number one pass defense in the sport. Ravens obviously had a historically great year. They were first in points allowed, sixth in total yards allowed per game. They were first in takeaways, first in sacks, seventh and third down defense. They were great in Baltimore this year and ultimately not able to get past Patrick Mahomes, but not because of the defense, why they lost in the AFC Championship game. So Wilson has been in the league for quite some time. He was hired by the Rams in 2012. And with this, he's one of the more heralded first-time coordinators that was available to be hired in this cycle. We'll see how well he does in this role. The biggest question that I would have for him is how he is going to rectify the problems that they have on third and long and the problems that they have specifically on giving up explosive plays. I think he's going to be an interesting dude to talk to just based on some of the sample size of his press conferences in Philadelphia or his media availability in Philadelphia. Here's a portion of that from 2022.
Think about if you became the defensive coordinator, how you do things?
Yeah, I mean, look, I've been doing this for a long time, and I've been around some great defensive coordinators, in my opinion. You know, I've been groomed by Greg Williams. I've been groomed by Todd Bowles, who are very good in this league, and they're very thorough. So, you know, I've been tutored by them. I know how to run a ship. I know, the responsibility. So, if the opportunity presents itself, I'll be ready for it. But I'm here where my feet are, all right, and I'm just trying to be the best defensive back coach that I could be.
So that was a couple of years ago with the Philadelphia Eagles, obviously most recently with the Ravens and the new defensive coordinator here in Tennessee. Nick Davis says, will they press more? Tired of seeing them line up 20 yards off the ball. Obviously a little dramatic there, but yes, the secondary play, the cornerback play for the Titans is something that has been under scrutiny for quite some time. And with Denard Wilson coming in, I am going to be interested to see how they go about approaching this and how well all of this will be done to serve, building out a defense again around Jeff Simmons, around Harold Landry, because those are the two best players that they have on that defense right now. How Wilson is going to deploy them to maximize their abilities is also something that I think is going to be worth asking. All right, it's time for Bert. It's time for In Case You Missed It. We'll see if he's capable. We'll see if he's ready. We will see if he is prepared. My betting money is on neither of those three things being accomplished, but we will find out together right after I remind you about the person who is the most prepared. It's the Ashton Real Estate Group of RE/MAX Advantage, led by our good friend Gary Ashton, who, by the way, just got his dream address without the stress. I saw Gary bought a new home with his new family. He's getting ready to get married. It's a beautiful home. You can check it out at GaryAshton.com, along with all their other new listings and open houses that they have available for you. Whether you are buying or selling, do so with the intel edge that only the Ashton Real Estate Group can give you. Go to GaryAshton.com for more information. All right, Bert, get in here.
What's going on, Buck?
Hi, buddy.
Before we get started, I wanted to bring a comment to everyone's attention and see where we stood on this, because this is something that hasn't been resolved yet. From the beginning of the show, JR573 said, Buck, it's been a year and you still have not paid on the Eagles face paint. And just to refresh everyone's memory, it's a Super Bowl bet we made last year that Buck lost, so he would have to get an eagle tattooed on his face. I knocked it down from a tattoo, just said he just had to get face paint, and he still couldn't do that. JR has been keeping receipts, and he would like to know where we are with this.
Same place we were last year. We're not doing it.
No, that's not true. You lost, dude. I had to eat a whole onion. Come on,
yes,
man.
Yeah, I know. You did that. You're dumb. I lied. I don't have to paint my face. I win.
What did you find in your chair today?
I don't know what it was.
What was it shaped like?
A pen.
Yeah, it was not shaped like a pen. Someone else who's not shaped like a pen, they're not a pencil-necked geek, is Mike Vrabel. Hey, like that Mickey Ryan level transition. Mike Vrabel could not get a job this year. It confused a lot of people as to why that may be, why he's not getting job interviews or getting second interviews. Diana Rossini had a potential answer for that.
On Vrabel's side, what is your sense of why Vrabel doesn't have a head coaching job right now?
I don't think that there was a fit for him. I don't think he sat in front of any owner who thought that his style was going to work for what they were looking for.
What an interesting word to use, though, right? Because that's what we're talking about. It's like the way that these guys are personality-wise, the way that they come off, how big of a figure they cut within the building.
Do you know I had a GM at the Senior Bowl who mentioned to me Vrabel's physical build, that he's a very large human being and can be very intimidating to people in an organization that are going to be part of these decisions. And that is a factor, which I laughed. I said, stop, that's not something that's real. Who cares what someone physically looks like? And he said, I'm just telling you, I've been in rooms and somebody's physical presence can make a difference. And if you think about it, it makes sense. Outside of football, it has an effect, right? They always say really tall men have better opportunities in executive
tell me about
roles.
it. Yeah, tell me about it. As I sit here living my 5'11" life for the last 35 years and everything that comes with it.
Really tall, stunning, beautiful women are on TV, which is why I'm on a podcast now, right? This is what happens, Trevor. but I do think
making me feel great right now about where my career has ended up.
But I think that Belichick and Vrabel are very different. I feel like also from an age factor, Vrabel got stuck in that weird late 40s, early 50s bracket where you're not really young anymore. You know, you're not like Mike McDonald running around. I was surprised that the Commanders didn't even meet him, though, for an interview, even just to learn, right? Because I think we can give him credit for having success in Tennessee. We keep talking about culture building,
identity. Feel. When you watch a team and understand like what the coaching is and what sort of processes are going into it, like that, you watch that team and you understood what it was. It was there was no gray area to those early Titans teams.
Yeah, and even talking to players there since, you know, I think they're still baffled by it because there was just so much respect for what he can do, and even at the Senior Bowl, that was a lot of the buzz too of, oh, where's he? Everyone just thought he was going to pop up and get a job, and that word just didn't get out. And I do believe that there are some teams that were interested in bringing him in to be a defensive coordinator. We'll see if that still pans out. But I think that would be pretty shocking to see him go from where he was. But
he might as well just get paid this year and hang out.
It's great to know that the reason that I'm also not getting jobs is because of my buff, manly physique. All my job and my bosses and coworkers are intimidated by my body. I've never felt so connected to Mike Vrabel in my entire life. It explains everything, Buck. It explains all my problems. How do you feel about that?
I feel that, thank God, this is such a zoomed in on your
Maybe we can zoom out a little bit.
No.
I mean, like that.
Oh,
I'm getting fired, aren't I?
very vascular. Very vascular.
Oh, yes. Big veins.
So
Big veins.
Mike Vrabel's not getting jobs because he's too physically big, is how I understand it. All right. So how does that hit you when you hear her talking about speaking with a general manager at the Senior Bowl? Because every Titans fan, I feel like in our lives, Bert, is going to look at the fact that Mike Vrabel has a job, hear a bunch of stuff around, well, there wasn't a right fit, or he wasn't that interested in the jobs that were out there, and look at it and call it Mike Vrabel's spin. Some of it is for sure spin, but I'm so curious about the most alpha male league that we have. Somebody copping to the idea of people being beta enough to be intimidated by a coach in an interview when they are supposed to be leader of men types. So
basically it sounds like bullshit, right?
Like it sounds like bullshit to me.
When something like this comes out, you have to think who is it trying to do something for? It's obviously trying to soften this blow Vrabel took by not getting a coaching gig, right? By Diana Rossini, which she's always got the scoop, right? So I don't know. It sounds like a crock of bullshit to me. I just want to say bullshit because I can't say it on the radio. So that's how I 100% feel about it.
Now listen, I'm not calling what Diana said bullshit.
No, sure.
I believe that Diana spoke to somebody who said that to her 100%. But that Mike Vrabel doesn't have a job because he was too intimidating for the Chargers, who had a Harbaugh hard on the entire time, right? That was not something that they were shy about. And then interviewed with the Falcons, who seemed mostly interested in Bill Belichick until all of a sudden they weren't interested in Bill Belichick, turned around and said, let's hire the guy we know already, Raheem Morris. So I don't know. He didn't interview anywhere else. He didn't have any other interviews. Carolina hired Canales before Mike Vrabel was scheduled to go to Carolina to have an interview. So I'm curious about all of this right now. I am legitimately curious to see now where he pops up. I know Titans fans are largely over it, but I'm just fascinated to see what job Mike Vrabel is going to be doing in 2024, because I know he's not just going to be sitting on his ass playing golf.
So that was the last interesting part of that audio, right? Was that it does Mike Vrabel pop up as a defensive coordinator somewhere? Where would you sit on that?
No, unless it's for one of these offensive coaches that's just going to let him be, right? That he's going to get to be the head coach of the defense. But I don't know if we're talking about pettiness and stuff like that. How many people do you think are secure enough? How many offensive coaches, like in a situation like that, are secure enough to bring in Mike Vrabel and just give him full oversight over the defense? Because I know a lot of these people aren't shy by any stretch of the imagination, or can handle themselves in front of people and can carry themselves a certain type of way. Mike is different. Like that's not just bullshit about Mike Vrabel being too tall, big, and gruff to interview well, and it not making people I don't know how it necessarily hit people, apparently, based on Diana's description of that particular interaction. But Mike does make people uncomfortable. Mike is a figure in the room because he makes himself that. So I can't see him doing it, because I think it would be a pretty big blow to his pride. And I know he's a pretty prideful person. And two, I can't see an offensive coach willing to do that, secure enough to do that, because I think he would immediately be you remember that season of Hard Knocks where Hugh Jackson is the coach of the Browns, and Todd Haley and Greg Williams are just actively trying to undermine him en route to taking his job on live TV.
No shit, I got a lozenge. Everybody loves that season.
For all of us to watch, right? I feel like whomever would consider bringing Vrabel in would have that scene in the back of their heads, thinking, oh my God, is this person just waiting around for me to get fired? I thought Dallas's defensive coordinator job made the most sense because McCarthy's on a 1-year deal. McCarthy's the most, what did Kevin Clark call him? The most pre-fired human being in America. So that would make sense. They're not hiring Mike Vrabel to be the DC in Dallas. I think it's a fascinating situation. I'm interested. I don't think Titans fans are overwhelmingly interested. I think they're just happy that they're getting a lot of things that they want on their new coaching staff and that Vrabel is currently unemployed.
Sure. It's like breaking up with a hot chick and she gets run over by a truck. Happens all the time, right? Love to see it. Anyway, stuff to do. I filled my question quota. Quit making faces that are meme worthy. I'll talk to you later, Buck.
Get out. I think he just implicated us in a crime. Somebody should check on Cheyenne. Either way, that is going to do it for us tonight on the Primetime Show. We appreciate you guys spending your evenings here with us. Teresa Walker of the Associated Press going to be in studio on the radio show tomorrow. We're going to talk about the philosophical shift that the Titans are getting ready to undertake, the biggest in their history as a franchise since coming to Tennessee in the last 25 years. She'll give us the proper perspective because T has been covering this team for 25 years. We'll do that from 10 to 1 tomorrow. Have a great rest of your evening, and I will see you guys then on 104.5 The Zone.
This is our Colts. This is our team. We bleed blue. This is our Colts. Whether win or lose, we love them. For the shoe, beat the Titans. Let the world hear us now. This is our team. Go Colts.